G'day, Stu from UAVfutures here, and welcome back to another episode of Tech Tuesday, where every Tuesday we get together, we talk about some new, different, or just exciting technology in the FPV drone racing world. And today we've got some doozies to show you. First and foremost, we're going to be looking at some of the possibly the best VTXs out there for long range. I mean, a VTX that does 1200 milliwatts or 1.2 watts, so that's kind of crazy. We're also going to be checking out some of the footage of this new little micro cam from foxeer. That's going to be the end of the video for you guys to make up or show some DVR. And then something pretty cool, because look, UAVfutures is all about getting people flying and sharing this passion of FPV with others. But right here, what I've got a 16-year-old kid's work in what he's been designing. He's been making his own frame. There's a whole big write-up about it. We're going to go through this because it's kind of cool to see someone taking such a passion and such interest at such a young age in our hobby and coming up with their own kits. So we're going to be doing a bit of a special tribute to this little frame right here, the Kitty Hawk. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's kick it off with these sort of ultimate long-range VTXs, stick them on the bench, and then go through some of the other stuff as well. So let's get started in 3, 2, 1. Rightio, here they are on the bench, and first things first, you know, we've got our two different shapes here, and that's really all it is. They're the same VTX, you know, they're just in a different form factor. So this goes on your 30 by 30 sort of stack. If you want one of those clean builds, this is the one to go after. Or this one, if you're one of the space conscious, you're building an ultralight, something like this might be more up your alley because you can cram this in there a little bit better. Now, some of the features, they've got smart audio, they've got these wonderful MMCX connectors, which is really the future of our hobby. I wish they all came with that because that's such a better connector. It's on attached to this one. We've got our SMA pigtails. They do have these little clips at the front for our cables, and to be honest, I don't like that whatsoever. I wish they could make a VTX that just had solder pads, because I much prefer solder pads. If you break this or if this comes off, they're a pain to fix, they're a pain to repair. So, you know, I don't know why they're doing that. Please just give us some little solder pads that we can solder to. I'll be a very happy man if that's what they came out with. Now, what we should do, if you're interested, let's stick them on the scales, find out how much they're going to weigh. I think this one is a little bit heavier let's take the cable out. So without the cable, that one's 14 grams, and this one without the cable, that's coming in at 11 grams. So a couple of grams difference there. You can see we've got a nice big press button on the top, our LED display right there, and you've also got some little LEDs that show your power level. This one's exactly the same, except all the info's on the other side. You've also got a little microphone on each one of those if you're into your microphone, and they do both have smart audio. Now, for me, on Tech Tuesday, what I'd love to do is go out and fly these, and, you know, I would show you the picture and say that's good, but I don't have a long range rig that's really going to put, you know, 1.2 watts to the test. You know, what I want to say is I really don't have, you know, what good would that picture be? I want to show you some data, and I'm going to lean on Oscar Liang here. Thanks, I'm going to put his picture on the screen because he does have one of those fancy RF meters. I've got one coming, but I don't have it here. I'd love to show you that data, but on his, it looks like in his testing, this one was pumping a bit over 1,000 watts, and this one was around between 900 and 1,000. So it looks like we've got a little bit more power out of this one. I can't tell how clean it's going to be, but I think I can definitely say the more, I guess, juice you're pumping out of your VTX, the more noise is going to be in the air, and it's going to make it a lot harder. Your channel is going to bleed over a lot more into other pilots. So this is definitely made for long-range pilots who like to fly solo. Don't be taking this thing to a race and bumping it up to 1.2 watts, because yeah, you might get good footage, but you're going to be wiping everybody else around you out of the air, and they're going to be very, very upset. But one good thing, you don't have to fly on, you know, 1200 all the time. You can put it on 25, 200, 600 as well if you don't want to boost it right up to that high power level. So if you are going to be putting this in a rig you take to races as well, definitely make sure you're changing your power levels. And that's why smart audio is a good feature as well, because that is going to help you on race day to fly with other people. Now, if you look at the VTX selection here, you can see that it's got all the 40 channels, but they have crossed some of these out due to regulations. So you've got your E, E4, E7, and E8. You're not going to be able to select some of those. It's going to be an invalid selection, and that's due to some regulations around the world. So if that's your channel, well, if you want one of these, you're going to have to fly on something else. Now, from the videos I've seen online, I've seen some of these getting very, very hot when they're on that high power setting, you know, and they do degrade over time. I guess if they're getting too hot, they're going to perform less and less. So they can get up to like 90 degrees Celsius, whatever that is. I'll flash that on the screen, but that is very, very hot. So as soon as you get one of these, if you're boosting that power, make sure you're flying around and getting some airflow over it, because they're going to get very hot, and you do have the potential to sort of melt out some of your other components. If you've got some hot glue, some plastics around, that's getting close to 100 degrees. That's going to cause for some very bad things to happen. But that's enough about those two, but they definitely look like they could be very strong candidates for some of the best long-range VTXs out here. What we've got here, this is from Foxeer. This is their new little Micro Predator Predator V2. It's meant to have super wide dynamic range. Everything else is pretty similar. You know, this is the sort of kit you get in here. You don't get too much, you know, that you don't need. Your little cables, all that sort of stuff, a little mount, yada yada. That's all pretty boring. A little control board, but how does it actually perform? So I'm going to flash some DVR on at the end. We'll be focusing it at the sun, seeing how it handles those transitions, all that sort of stuff, and that's to let you guys make up your own mind. The only part I do want to do is stick it on the scales, because if you're building an ultralight, something like this is going to definitely keep the weight down, coming in at under 6 grams. So look at that, it can take a huge wide range of voltages, and overall I think, well, I'm just going to let you sort of see some of that footage at the end. And then something I'm really excited about is this frame right here, the Kitty Hawk, designed by a 16-year-old, and I think that's absolutely fantastic for people with a bit of passion in our hobby to get together. I'm going to zoom out and show you this frame in all its glory. Right, so here's the Kitty Hawk on the bench, and look, I've got mine loosely put together because I want to pull it apart and show you how it goes together, but it's a vertical arm frame designed to spin some 5-inch props. You do get some little brace plates as well, which if you want to put those on, I recommend you would. It should hold up to be a very little rigid craft. Now, when I was 16, I definitely wasn't doing some design work, anything like that, so I think to see something like this come out of a kid is amazing and shows our hobby has a very, very bright future. Now, let's go over some of the features that we've got. Of course, we've got our vertical arms. It's very, very light. If I stick it on the scales, it should be... It's coming in at around 84 grams. So you can see there's no excess carbon in here. And if I show you these 4mm thick arms right there, so that's coming in at 4mm thick. So I think one of the issues a lot of people have with vertical arms is, do they get oscillations? I know on my Talon I didn't get any. And I think with these braces, this is going to help it as well. You shouldn't be getting any vibrations through your craft. Definitely put these on at the front and the back. One thing I do like is these motor mounts here. It doesn't matter which direction you want to put them on, because they can either be on the left or the right. So there's sort of a universal mount. So I think that's a bit of clever designing there. You don't need to have individual motor mounts. You could also switch them around and run your struts up, I guess, along the length of the frame as well. Now in the middle, I'm going to take this little top pod off here. So I've got a screw holding it together. There we go. So it's got a pretty clever way that it goes together. So you can see it's simply 2 long arms that intersect with each other, and Bob's your uncle. That's it. That's the brace of your frame. So I think what I really like about it as well is underneath, you've got some little brace plates as well. These things seem very, very stiff. So I'm hoping this will help it hold up in crashes. That slides so snugly over the top, and that's probably something I'm impressed with, is the tolerances of this thing. That's it. You've got your little top pod, and then your Kitty Hawk is ready to rock and roll. And of course, once you screw everything down, all the screws and nuts and bolts in, it's going to be a very rigid little frame. I would complain about camera protection, but you can see with these front parts on there, I think your camera is going to be very, very well protected, especially with these 2 little spurs out the front. You've got plenty of room. It takes you 30x30 stack, and I would like it if you could put some 20x20s in there, but you might need some little adapters, a little place to zip tie your pigtail, or if you've got some antennas and all that sort of stuff down. And overall, I think the only issue you're going to have is trying to mount your FPV camera. You're going to need some special mounts or something like that to go in the front. Unless you're hanging it from the front with those old school, something like this, this is going to be your only real option, to put something like that through the roof. It'd be nice if it had, because these little parts, these 3D printed parts are so nice, it'd be nice if it had a little 3D printed part as well that fitted in the front of the craft. Now look, I'm not going to scrutinize it too much. What I really want to highlight here is, I guess, how impressed I am with a 16-year-old kid designing his own frame, getting it built up, getting it working, where you can actually have a pretty cool, interesting design out there in today's market. From a kid, I'm very, very impressed. So not the full review, you know, let's be kind, and I want to say, you know, to any kids out there, if you're in this hobby, you're thinking of designing your frames, you could be designing the frame of tomorrow. So definitely thumbs up to you guys out there, the future of this hobby, and I'm very, very impressed. And if you do want to show some love for the Kitty Hawk, definitely I'll put the link down below. Even if you just want to go check it out, there's a massive big write-up. It shows you, his projects he's been working on and how he went about it. It's a really interesting read. So go check that website out. And I think there's even a store if you want to sort of get in contact about getting some of these made for you. Rightio, so there it is. There's my Tech Tuesday quick look at a couple of things. So our long-range best VTXs out there, they're probably putting out close to 1,000 watts based on that Oscar Liang. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Based on his data, but if you're one of those people out there, you are flying solo and you're doing a lot of long range stuff, this looks like it's a pretty decent option. Also, I'm going to leave the footage of that foxeer Predator Micro V2 at the end. Let me know what you think. I think the colors, it really had a cool look, but the greens and the blues look really nice. And the other one too, big shout out to this frame, because look, for a 16-year-old to be designing this sort of stuff, it just shows their passion about the hobby. And I know it was a little bit different of an episode because I don't usually showcase just a frame like this, but I thought, well, this thing was pretty special. The amount of work he put into it. Definitely go. I'm going to put his link down below. below. Definitely go check it out, show him some support, write him some emails, because look, these kids today, they might be designing the frames of tomorrow. So UAVfutures, it's all about promoting the hobby and, you know, getting people flying, but it's also about promoting people who are putting the work in as well. And I'm very proud, you know, if we've got some kids designing cool stuff like this, it's definitely got something to show for it. Anyway, enough rambling from me. Subscribe for more FPV related content, or drop some love down below. What did you think about this frame? And as always, happy flying!